South Africa, we need to have a serious discussion about the extortionate price of smartphones that we have in this country. A few days ago, I published an opinion piece of geekup.co.za on this very subject. In a country where the average monthly salary is around 28,000 Rand, having to pay your entire month's salary and a bit on a smartphone is not only outrageous, it's just frankly unsustainable. Now, there are various mechanisms and people looking for solutions to try and correct this kind of issues. I know Minister Solly Malatsi has mentioned ad valorem tax, which adds about 25% onto the sticker price of a smartphone. And the efforts that are being put into bringing the cost of smartphones down, perhaps removing it completely or just adjusting it downwards. But if we know the history of government, especially the communications department, it's taken more than 10 years to migrate to digital TV. There's not much we can expect in this space. We are constantly required to actively find solutions, while the network providers, in their infinite wisdom, have supposedly come up with a generous way to save us money: 48-month contracts. Is this a good deal? A very bad one indeed. A smartphone over a 48-month contract, let's just take an iPhone for example, an iPhone 15, a generation old, at 739 Rand a month, over a 48-month contract will land you around 35,000 Rand. That's for a phone that should retail around 16,000 Rand if you just buy it outright. This kind of reminds me of car dealerships who give you great installments financed over 72 months with a 30% balloon payment. These companies seem to be finance houses that are actually pushing stuff that people totally cannot afford. In this journey of exploring solutions, I happened to stumble upon CPO, or Certified Pre-Owned iPhones. Now, this is in no way an endorsement of CPO products or the guests that I'm going to be speaking to today. But I think it is important for us to unpack, is it a viable solution in our journey to find something that will truly benefit consumers? Today, I'm in conversation with team at Cellcell, Daniel Smillian and David Falber. Guys, welcome to In Conversation.
Akram, thank you for having us. So yeah, I mean, funny enough, you mentioned car dealerships, and I was looking to buy a new car not so long ago, and I went into a dealership, and exact same conversation. I can give you the best car, costs 1.5 million Rand hypothetically, and I can give it to you for 6,999 months. I was like, how? It's how? How can you do that? And then they says, no, we can. But when you get to the dealership, all of a sudden you stuck for the next 72 months.
Absolutely, and it's unfortunate because the human mindset, I mean, we all like to have nice things, let's be honest, right? But we need to be real about what we can afford and what damage that's going to do down the line, in terms of debt, etc. And people are tending to take on responsibilities they shouldn't be. Yes, the economy is tough. Everybody's trying to get sales out there. Everybody's trying to make business and grow. But I think we just need to be real and understand, is that the right way to go? And I'm finding that more and more in the smartphone industry, especially with these long-term contracts, it's bloody ridiculous.
I think the networks, and again, I'm talking out of turn here. My opinion is that, there has been a massive drop-off in postpaid because of the pricing of phones. They may come back and say I'm talking absolute rubbish, but we have seen it from our side. We used to be we still sell on postpaid, but majority of our sales has moved to prepaid, which means most of our stuff is cash sales. And the reason that's happened is because people don't want to finance their phone over 24 months or 36 months, especially that you've got a cheap alternative. We put a lot of energy into understanding what the market really wants. And when we moved away from the postpaid into prepaid, we started having more conversations with the retailers, mass retailers, the likes of Ackermans, Mr. Price, RC, Hi-Fi Corp, all these guys. And they were saying to us that the deals that are coming out of the networks are crazy. Guys are getting stuck in long-term contracts and the phones aren't lasting as long as certain other devices. So they looked at us as an option. Our sales on prepaid went through the roof once we started supplying directly to these retailers. I just think people don't want to be stuck in a 24 or 36-month contract anymore.
And I think this is a good start and leading into the conversation we're going to have today, Daniel, is that and it's not only the networks. I mean, if you look at pricing, even OEMs themselves, prices. But and I know there's various reasons that contribute to the cost of smartphones. I mean, from the rand's weakness to major currencies. I mean, to ad valorem, which I actually touched on a little bit.
The fact that the dollar can't hold the position for longer than 10 seconds.
100%. And I mean, in anything Trump says, it just fluctuates, right?
Anything Trump says is gold.
It's craziness, but. Apart from that, I think we also got to factor in the value chain, and then you have retailers, you have distributor margins, and you have all of those things. Everybody needs to make money somewhere. But even beyond that, I think it's just becoming madness. I mean, I reviewed a brand recently that doesn't have much brand equity in the country. They make amazing products. Personally, when I use the product, I say this was the best I've ever used.
Yeah.
So great technology and innovation. However, you don't have the brand to command that price, but it is double what they sell in international markets.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm saying is that are we being, are they taking the piss here, for a lack of a better word? And this is where you also find from the network side, they're trying to find solutions, but is it solutions to actually help consumers, or is it solutions to grow their sales? And it's not just any specific network provider. You look across the board, and they're pivoting their businesses. Obviously, that is because, like you just introduced now, the sales difficulties and challenges, but they are becoming finance houses.
Correct. That's exactly what's happening. Every single retailer now has a finance aspect to it.
Yeah.
You can't buy anything in retail without financing, especially in the tech space.
Yeah. And is this necessarily good for the end user? And I think this is what I'm trying to unpack and understand. And what next? What are the alternatives? There are so many. I mean, we're talking today about certified pre-owned specifically, and you guys space experience and capability in this industry. And you need to direct me and correct me here, but I myself, and I find many people that I speak to, have no clue the difference between a pre-owned device, certified pre-owned, versus a refurbished, versus second-hand, which you get on Facebook Marketplace or Bob Shop or Gumtree for that matter, and the inherent risks that goes along with that. I mean, I always thought, why should I buy a pre-owned device?
So the two things that I think that need to be spoken about is more so what's the difference between each of those devices in this industry, this side of the mobile industry, and then also the education side of it, right? To say, well, like, there's multiple options in the pre-owned space because, as you said, you get CPO, you get pre-owned, you get refurbished, and then having the ability to teach the consumers to say, these are the devices that you have the choice to choose from. That what are the best options to go with, right?
Yeah.
And generally, the other element to it is also the frowned upon element to say, well, do I really want to have someone's old phone? But what we get to do is to say, not only do you want to have someone else's pre-owned phone, that phone is an incredible piece of technology. It's in perfect working condition, and you're going to pay half or 30% less in general than a brand new phone, and it's going to do the exact same thing.
So hold it right there. I think that is very important, because what we're ultimately trying to achieve is put more money in consumers' pockets. And so let's take it a step back.
Well, also, sorry to interrupt you there, to also link back to the, I always talk about the aspirational ideologies of a consumer. Consumers love nice things, as you said earlier. However, it's gotten to a point where consumers just can't afford it. And we need to see it. We get to say, hey, buddy, you can afford it. You've just got to have the desire to actually want a pre-owned device.
Okay.
I don't know if I've actually introduced David. He is the head of sales, and I'm sure you just saw that. I just wanted you to, perspective. Because he's going to sell you ass and
I can see that, and probably that's why he's got a whole lot of devices.
Yeah.
I've assumed those are devices that are directly in front of him. But I'm making this conversation and ultimately putting money in consumers' pockets. I think we need to take a step back, because I still don't know the difference
Yeah.
and what's going. So, but before we look at those differences which are highlighted,
Yes.
why are you guys the experts to be able to educate us?
I'm gonna let Dan answer
The
that one.
journey that. So a couple of years ago, I think it's been going on 6 years or 5 years. I came from a corporate bank. So I spent 15 years in banks doing a whole bunch of corporate stuff. I can't tell you what it was because I don't remember. But we've got a sister company in the US, okay, who does something very similar to this. I was there actually for that sister company's baby naming. So you can read between the lines. And I sat down in his office the one day, and his office is probably a future warehouse. And I looked around and I said to him, why won't we, and I used the actual word, that perfect adjective that describes everything, starts with an F. Why are we not doing this in South Africa? And he said, I've been waiting for you for years to say that. Okay, so I said, great. So off I go, come back to South Africa. And I start doing a lot of research around pre-owned phones and understanding what the market is and what the market is capable of. And I found a lot of problems. I mean, I found huge amounts of problems. Number one, it was run by corner shops. Okay, it was run a very dishonest business. It was basically run by gangsters, if you want to call it that. They were selling phones to people. They were overpricing them. They were giving no warranties on the phones, and they would break very, very quickly. Most of the
thing there's a stigma associated with that. That's embedded in our consciousness, our collective consciousness,
Especially coming from South Africa,
which is a huge problem. Yeah.
So we saw a massive issue here. Okay, pre-owned phones, no one can afford it. The LSMs in South Africa generally cannot afford a cell phone. So feature phones were moving out. Smartphones were starting to become more prevalent. We were moving from 2G to 3G networks. So you had to start moving away from certain feature phones into the smartphone world. But you had no access to these smartphones. There were a couple of Android devices that were really cheap. The Chinese market hadn't come in yet. So you had the Samsung options, and you had one or two other, the Huawei's and a few other little options that were around. But Apple, you had no access to Apple unless it was sold either out of your cupboard drawer or in, Dira Market phone, which I call, comes out of that special market in Dubai, or Frankenstein phones. Frankenstein phones for us is just to take 5 phones, all broken, and rebuild them with different parts. And they would sell that to the consumer. They would break, and then they would be nowhere to be found. So there was a massive negative connotation put on pre-owned. Okay. I think there were a couple of other guys that were before us that were fastest to zero in terms of, trying to sell as much as they could, bringing down the price. Quality got worse, price went lower, phones started breaking a lot earlier, and caused a lot of trouble for consumers. So when I sat down and I actually resigned before I actually had a good think about why I should do this. And I sat down at a coffee shop and I wrote down where are the problems and what do we need to do to fix such problems. And the top of and it's still my mission statement now, is how do we create trust in a product so it gives value to a consumer? Okay, so when they buy an Apple device, the experience of opening a new Apple device or opening a pre-owned device is exactly the same. And that's what we've been trying to do since we started this business. If you take a brand new iPhone 16 or you take a pre-owned iPhone 11, the opening experience isn't quite the same, because we're not going to invest hundreds of thousands of rands in boxes, because we want to pass the discount on to the consumer in terms of the handset itself. But the experience is still there. When you open the phone, it still looks like a brand new phone.
Sealed.
It still has TPU cover put onto the back of the phone, so it looks clean. It's got a warranty, 12 to 24 month warranty. We're actually looking to expand our warranty to 24 months just because I think there's value there. And let the unboxing experience be a little bit better than just walking into a store and saying, I want that, taking it and walking out.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a lot of things that's very interesting, but one thing that touches, and I think I need to clarify this for the viewers, is that we're talking about Apple here, and we're talking about Apple pre-owned specifically. Now, the conversation is framed about saving money, general, and making smartphones more accessible, and the high cost of smartphones, or flagships rather, in a South African context. There's also a perception that, and a correct one perhaps, that Apple is for a niche market. And I mean, it's not for everybody. Not everybody. It's not accessible to all South Africans because of price points, etc., etc. Right? But I think what is very, very important to also understand is that The difference between an entry smartphone and a flagship smartphone, um, it could be just about getting by in the digital age or actually thriving in the digital age. So while a lot of work, especially from the networks, etc., is being done to say, well, let's get rid of 2G and 3G phones and get 4G devices on the network to get people access, how much you can be able to do and be productive. Yes, if you're comparing it to brand new, I get that price difference, I get that niche, etc. But if you can get a flagship device for 30% less,
Agreed.
or 40 or 50 for that matter, and have that experience, surely this is not just going to be about being connected anymore, but it's about being part of the digital economy, getting people to be active, which has a societal benefit, which has an economic benefit. There's various aspects to that, and I think that is very intriguing. What you guys are doing. So I want the viewers to be cognizant of this fact. This is not just peddling Apple or products that is out of reach for the average South Africans. This is about an entire conversation of finding solutions I mean, our phones are no longer a luxury item, it's a necessity. It's become an extension of ourselves, it's become an extension of our lifestyles, our businesses, our education.
It's your laptop in your pocket.
So it's a tool.
Yeah,
and you are making tools more accessible through this.
correct. And we started this business 5 years ago. Our first shipment came in as COVID started. Okay, so we literally unpacked our first shipment into our safes, and that Monday we went into lockdown. And I do believe that everything in life is timing. I think the fact that you picked up that phone and gave me a call, said I've been using a phone and I want to have a conversation with you, I think it's all timing. But my point of this is that smartphones became people's everything. Their screens, their communication devices, their games, their educational toys, whatever it was there during COVID. And our business, we started selling a lot of phones because there was nothing available at that time. And that's how our business got going. But to add to you, when you say add to the digital economy, that's their everything. You walk around with your phone, it's your wallet, it's your car key, it's your gate opening thing. It's everything you do is on your phone. Your entire life's sitting on that thing. Okay. And people generally, they want the best of the best of the best, which is unattainable.
Absolutely, and I think that is why it's so important that we explore these options, right? We still have not unpacked
Yes.
the differences and address that confusion. What is, in fact, a CPO versus a refurbished versus second-hand?
So in Apple's world, you've got 4 types of devices. You've got new finished goods. That's the retail box, retail product that goes into our stores and all the other wonderful Apple stores that there are in the other stores. That's finished. That comes at a price, as you know. Then you've got something called a CPO. Now, this is a term that is thrown around very loosely within South Africa. The actual term CPO is Apple Certified Pre-Owned. That is Apple's refurbished product that they manufacture, they box it, and they will use to distribute it amongst the rest of the world. That was generally $100 cheaper than a finished product. Okay. Most of the time, it's just excess goods that they haven't sold, and they rebox them and they send it. We don't see a lot of CPO in South Africa, actual CPO in South Africa. It was something that was quite big a couple of years ago, but that's fallen off completely. There's a reason for that, and I'll get into it. Then you get into refurbished. Now, refurbished is when you so you break your phone, you drop it, you drive over it, whatever happens. It goes to the insurance companies, they give you a new device. That device gets sold off to salvage people. They then take those phones, they strip them. They then take 5 different bins, one for screens, one for boards, one for microphones, one's for casings, one's for this. Then they buy whatever stuff they need, and then they put those phones back together by picking. We call those Frankenstein phones, because Dr. Frankenstein took parts from everywhere. That's our biggest problem within South Africa is the refurbished phone. Because if you're building a BMW with Mercedes parts and Mazda parts and thingy parts, what's going to happen to your car? It's not going to work. Yeah. Okay, so you're putting the wrong parts into the wrong phones, and it just causes a lot of trouble.
So if I understand this correctly, but just using an analogy to frame it, the CPO or a certified pre-owned device is like buying a really, really great, well taken care of vehicle that's not brand new, probably showroom quality, something that's like a demo, almost. And then if you go in
Exactly.
refurbish, it's like purchasing a Code 3.
Correct. So someone's crashed it and returned it.
Right?
Yeah,
Which you
exactly.
can't do much with it. Yeah.
So if you walk into a car dealership and it's the demo car that's done 200 miles,
Yeah.
that's the CPO device in the terms of what CPO actually stands for. In South African terms, CPO means certified pre-owned. Somebody certified it, somebody's saying it's pre-owned, and somebody's saying it's good to go. Now, those phones can be refurbished, they can be pre-owned, they can be the phone from your drawer. But our world, we play in pre-owned. Okay, we call it CPO because we do certify it. We don't Apple certify it from a point of view that Apple don't give us a stamp. Apple don't give anyone a stamp except it's themselves. We have a piece of software called Phone Check. Okay, Phone Check goes in and does a deep dive into every single device. Okay, it tells us the history of the device. It tells us whether the device is blacklisted. It tells us whether the device has outstanding finance. It tells us the parts, the original serial numbers of the parts that were in the device and the parts that are currently in the device. If those two don't match perfectly, we disqualify the phone. Okay, which means all our devices are genuine OEM components within those devices. Never been changed, never been refurbished, never been opened. On the odd occasion, we do open phones to change batteries. If the batteries are lower than 80%, we will change that battery. But that device will go to an Apple authorized repair center, which will use Apple software to configure the device and to do what Apple does with those devices.
Is Phone Check the industry standard?
Yes, Phone Check's been around since the beginning. We pay about 50 US cents a device to test it for phone. So it's not something that comes cheap, but it gives us peace of mind.
Yeah.
Based on our current return rate with Vodacom, we're at 0.13% return rate on about 70,000 devices over the last 2 years.
And an average of about 0.17 over all clients.
Yeah. And that's for two reasons. One, every single phone goes through 3 times QA. So once in where we buy, once here, and once when it goes out. So
we would really love to have a look at your testing processes and how you put it, because I mean you're talking about numbers 0.17%. I have been in this industry for 20 years. In the corporate space working for OEMs, and I've never seen those kind of numbers. A lot of times, even in terms of brand new devices,
we almost have to actually tell guys
it's incredible
1% because they don't think that they're giving him real figures.
It's funny that you say that because
OBF devices and all of these things usually are higher than.
So funny. We had a chat with the head of Vodacare. We had a serious chat. We had a proper scientific conversation, and there's a disproportionate downward trend in terms of failure rate on pre-owned Apple phones versus new. They fail fast, and then they don't fail. So once they hit that failure and then they stop and then they go, the older they get, the less chance of failing that phone becomes from a plastic point of view, from the board point of view. Yeah. Obviously, you might have screen burn, your microphone might go off a little bit, your battery might degrade. But in general, you're not going to have epidemic failure. You're not going to have your phone's not going to be one day on, next day off, and never going to be turned on again. So, but saying that, we give you a 12-month warranty on every single device with a 12-month battery warranty. So if
it's peace of mind like brand new.
And we're thinking about going to 24 months because we're confident in our product to the point where we're not concerned that in month 17 your phone's going to break. So we want to give more peace of mind to the consumer.
And I think that is the case then for actually going premium and choosing something like an Apple product, which we unpacked on, why is it just Apple and not others? But you spoke about qualities, the reliability, the longevity.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why did you pick up a pre-owned phone?
Well, the thing is, I needed a secondary device. Okay. I use I have a personal number and then I have a business number, and I find that so a backstory here. I bought the iPhone 16 Pro Max.
Okay.
A couple months before that, when Apple released it, I actually wrote a piece and I said to people, "Don't upgrade." Okay. I said, "Do not upgrade. If you had the iPhone 15 series, there's absolutely no reason to upgrade. There's nothing much apart from Apple Intelligence and maybe a fancy button. Don't do this." And then I found myself a month later going and upgrading to the 16 Pro Max. I'm like, wait, hold on. I said to everybody, don't. But The main reason was, and I need to keep it honest with my viewers and my readers, is that I had a use case, a very specific one. I'm finding I'm using my phone more and more, and then I needed that extended battery life. So I moved from a Pro to a Max.
Yes.
Okay, and
Just
that was
about.
and that was the only reason I went in for it. But also because I got a bloody good trade in, and I've got in a discount through eBucks, which made it a no-brainer eventually, and I went in.
Yeah.
But because of the sheer size of this beast, it's cumbersome, it's heavy, and on a daily basis, I needed something that is just a little bit more convenient and accessible. And I wasn't going to pay an arm and a leg for another brand new phone, so I explored. And that's when I went in. I mean, I'm using an 11 Pro, which is like 6 generations
Yeah.
old. But it's
You wouldn't know.
incredible.
You wouldn't know.
And I found myself gravitating more and more to this device. And I think that's where I reached out to you guys. Because when I got the packaging of the specific phone, I found your website and details, and I'm like, who the hell is Cellcell? You know, I didn't.
Rightfully so. That's
You know, I didn't
the
purchase
secret
this-
agents.
Yeah.
Secret agents.
I didn't purchase this
Unknown.
phone from Cellcell.
Yeah.
So why does it say Cellcell on it? And that piqued my curiosity, and here we are today.
Just to tap into what you have just said. Obviously, I make sales to B2B, but here and there, if a family friend needs a phone, whatever, we can allow them to come in and buy 1 or 2 phones here, whatever the case may be. Every time the guy calls me, he's like, why was I buying the brand new phone?
Yeah.
It's like, buddy, but I told you this.
Yeah.
Like, there is no difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, pre-owned phones are so acceptable. That's the truth.
But the reason I asked you that question was I wanted to understand your psyche behind why you bought that phone. Because you had the ability to buy a 16 Pro Max. As at the same time, you had the ability to buy whatever phone you really wanted as your secondary phone. Yet you chose to go pre-owned. 90% of South Africa don't have that option. They don't have that option. Okay, so going back to, and I want to go back into that piece later, but I think just going back to pre-owned devices versus the rest of the market, in terms of the different types of phones. I think pre-owned, the negative connotation with this is something that we are pushing very hard to get rid of. You bought that pre-owned phone because you needed a secondary phone. You've used that phone now and you're very happy with that phone. In fact, you're so happy with that phone, you're using that more than you are on the other one.
Absolutely.
There's no difference between your two phones. The day you walked out of it with your 11 or your 16 Pro Max became a second-hand phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, same way you drive off a dealership, it becomes a second-hand car.
Yeah.
It's just the perception is what my goal is to change. Yes, I'm in business to make money. Yes, I'm in business to... So the biggest issue we have right now is the inconsistency of grading across all retailers or resellers of these devices. You've got a couple of guys, I'm not going to mention names, who do it very well, who are honest about what they are selling. You've got an A grade, a B grade, a C grade, you've got a good, better, best, you've got a premium, you've got a pristine, in terms of different devices, but the rest of the market don't care. They're just selling rubbish into the market, which is creating negative perception back onto these devices. So my goal is to actually try to create a standard across these things where people can trust, the consumer can trust. The fact that you're sitting in my office right now gives me the opportunity to try reach out to whoever's over there who wants to do something similar to what we're doing now and create a standard across these things, giving consumers a standard where they can say, oh, I bought a premium phone, or I bought a good phone, or a better phone. And that's going to be an A grade, or it's going to be a B grade. And a B grade is going to have a few little scratches on it, but the internals are still A grade. You still got the warranty, you still got the good battery, you still got everything else that you want in those devices. But the aesthetics might be slightly off.
I think it's just that assurance, for the
Correct.
customers, that peace of mind would be for me to be comfortable. I mean, you asked me why did I go pre-owned. I did it, and I told you the use case and my need. But was I terrified about trying it? Absolutely, I was. I wasn't sure whether I'm getting it because there's not sufficient information and we don't understand those standards that you spoke about. You also mentioned that people. I'm fortunate, and I know how my privilege and how privileged I am to be able to have a device like that or go and make that choice. A lot of people don't. But even those that do, often they have more money than sense. So if they don't understand the details and the value proposition, they will still go new. And this is another case. So I think that is vitally important.
Okay, do you have children?
Yeah.
Okay, would you buy your kid a brand new phone if you had an option of buying a pre-owned phone?
Absolutely.
When you
Well,
know,
now that I know better, absolutely not.
when you know that phone, literally within the next
Yeah.
3 weeks, will have scratches, will be
Yeah.
dropped, will have food all over it. Why would you spend?
I mean, my
15
13-year-old does it all the time. I
Correct.
think in the last 3 months, I've changed like 4 screen protectors for her.
Correct.
But
you've still got we're still giving you the peace of mind that if something happens to that phone from a technical point of view or from a physical factory, point of view, we'll replace that phone. And we don't repair phones, just by the way. Southside does not repair phones. If there's a problem with the phone, we'll give you a new phone. And you pre-owned it out.
I think the damage has been caused a lot also, guys, by the second hand, which we have. They're buying it off a Gumtree or the guy on the side of the street, and we know those comes with their inherent risks, especially in South Africa. Where you just grab something off a person on the corner of the road. It's tough. So people have bad experiences. They've been beaten and damaged. It's scary.
Well, also price driven, right? So talking about like what Dan's saying, extreme about standardizing the grading across the market. People are price driven as well. So the minute they see the same phone for cheaper price, but that retailer is not educating the consumer, that consumer just goes and buys the phone, not knowing really what they're buying and getting themselves into. So they're happy to buy the cheaper option, right? But that cheaper option might only last you 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Well, I think what Dave's saying, is really around the fact that because it's a substantial price point versus what it is actually, the guys are going there because they haven't got a lot of money. Just completely off a tangent on this one. We did a big exercise with a big company to understand buying power within South Africa versus the rest of the world. If you're a European guy, you will go and you'll buy straight away because you need it. South Africans don't work that way. They save their money up and they go do as much research as they can, and then they spend once.
Yeah.
Europeans, Americans, and the rest of the world will buy a phone. They don't like it, they'll sell it. They'll go buy another phone. They don't like it, they'll sell it. They'll go buy another phone. South Africans will buy once. Okay, if they get it wrong, they've wasted their money and they've saved up a lot of money to buy.
And also once you get into our show, right? So they go and buy a pre-owned phone. It's not the best.
But the problem is once they bought it, they go back to these corner shops.
There's nowhere to go to.
The guys aren't interested in helping. And that's where that negative connotation comes from.
Yeah. And there's some serious work that needs to be done in changing that. And I think this is a good start in terms of understanding really what is the value of pre-owned, where does it fit in the entire market, and how do consumers access it? I think that is also important because we spoke a lot about the quality and standards, but people still don't know if they need it certified.
Where they buy it from.
Where do they buy it from? Because I've seen many retailers offer pre-owned, but not all pre-owned are equal. So I think take us through that also is where do you guys supply? If our viewers want to be able to access a high quality device that is supplied by you and that's trend really good.
So we are currently our distribution channel, both networks, Vodacom and MTN, are Vodacom more on the postpaid and or prepaid, MTN more prepaid through their sales channels. Most major retailers, Ackermans, Mr. Price, Hearty, Incredible, the JD Group, so the
Half Corporation.
And then we have a couple of other smaller guys that are buying from us that are selling direct to consumer.
Yeah. So if we go to these major retailers and networks and purchase whether on postpaid or prepaid, certified pre-owned device, and its own likeness, it's your product, right?
Mm-hmm. We're not running around shouting about, this is, sell pre-owned devices like some of the other guys were doing. We wanted to give the retailers the opportunity to brand their own product at some point, which hasn't happened yet because they're still a little bit scared to put their name behind a device, which is coming. Some of them are going that route, but majority of them are just going to put our box as our brand and us as the OEM, as the supplier of the product. But I'll share a list of all our suppliers, and if you want to, you can.
We have many more smaller clients, but those are the major ones too.
All right, no, that's great. I think another important thing for South Africans are, apart from the quality, that sense of security that this is not a stolen phone, right? Yes. And I think that supply chain and you are making us understand. I mean, there's surely regulation with regard to bringing in devices from outside South Africa and those kind of things. How do you guys navigate that, and how can we be rest assured that I take this pre-owned phone and it's not going to stop get blacklisted down the line?
So I actually completely forgot, and I wanted to bring this up. We spent we spent 5 years with SAPS, the head of second-hand goods second-hand goods authority in South Africa, Lieutenant Colonel Woods. I hope he doesn't mind I use his name. But we spent 5 years going through the law and understanding everything. We managed to get a dispensation on second-hand goods. So anybody who sells anything second-hand in South Africa has to have a license to sell that. Okay, we have that license, but we also have a dispensation that says we don't need that license in order to sell these devices. And the reason being is we can prove never been stolen or it has been stolen. Never comes from within South Africa. Okay, contains the right model numbers that's supposed to be within the country, and gives the police peace of mind that these phones are bought from the OEM, which they are. So you will never ever buy a cell phone that has been stolen. It's impossible. It can never happen. We have our devices, which means we have spent the last 5 years with the police explaining them how we can show that these devices are not stolen. Okay, it took 5 years to prove that. What this means is that every single store, anybody who sells anything in South Africa, pre-owned or second-hand, needs a second-hand goods license.
Yeah.
Okay. With us, you don't need that license because of the dispensation that we got from police. That gives all the retailers or anybody who wants to sell our product the ability to sell a phone without having that license. Now, to get that license is not that difficult, but it's a hell of a story. You can get it, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get in terms of the second-hand goods license. So, to answer your other question around retailers, anybody who doesn't have a second-hand goods license, you can go buy our phones from. So it's majority, 99% of all retailers.
And also, sorry, to add on to that, phone check
Can show you.
phone check will prove to you that also the device has never been on a blacklist globally anywhere in the world.
And I'd love to show you. I'd love to show you phone check if we have got some time.
Absolutely. So I think we would love to do it behind the scenes, and we will show you to the viewers exactly how you guys take them through this process, because ultimately we just need to ensure everybody is comfortable and they get enough information. And I actually want to thank you guys at this point for your transparency, for opening up and allowing us to come into your world. And explaining everything in the detail that you have. I don't think there's many companies out there that are willing to do that. So we appreciate it. It's really humble of you. And I think the way we frame this conversation is really around affordability, and accessibility, and making these devices cheaper for consumers, putting money back in your pocket. But it's not a device just for people who can't afford.
It's also sexy.
It is brilliant, and it's for even those that can afford. Some people have more money than sense. So if you have money, but now that you have all this information, perhaps sensibility will triumph, and you will look at certified pre-owned as a really viable option, whether it's for yourself or for the kids. The guys here at Salsa just explained, and they have multiple gradings. I think perhaps can we just touch very quickly on those gradings, the A, B, and C, the differences between them, please.
So A grade is obviously the daddy, as you want to call it. The condition's perfect, the frame is perfect, the screens are perfect, the internals are perfect, right? I can guarantee you, if I blindfold tested you and gave you a brand new phone and an A grade devices, you would really struggle to tell the difference. Okay, but we always guarantee our batteries above 80%. B grade is now the exact same internals, fully functional, device is perfect. It just might have minor scratches on the frame, or literally micro scratches on the screen, which you could hardly ever see. And the minute you slap on a cover, like everyone does, just to protect their phone, even though we've got insurance, you won't even see that phone has got any scratches. And then C grade is obviously the lower grade, so it'll have more. It'll just have more of the B grade stuff. So bigger scratches, and maybe one or two scratches that you can see on the screen. But again, that battery will have 80%. We will obviously honor that battery under warranty, and that phone will actually be perfectly working, And that kind of spreads out the range and the affordability of the already affordable option of an iPhone.
Just to add to those, all our phones are A grade internals.
Correct.
All of them are 100% functional, 100% OEM, batteries above 80%, the 12-month warranty on every
Pure cosmetics.
The grading is only cosmetic. And there's probably a 25% delta between A to B to B to C. And C is a very viable option for people who can't afford phones. Put a screen protector, put a case on it, no one knows the difference. And B, I would recommend B to most people. A grade's really our network.
Truthfully, the market's
network
actually
phone.
trending that way.
And our insurance replacement device, which we will go into today, but we use our A grades as insurance replacement devices through Vodacom Insure, and they need to be as perfectly immaculate as they are. So B grades would be, I basically recommend B grades to anybody. Comes at a substantially cheaper price.
Sure.
And there's no difference between my phone and that phone, especially in the cover you have those one.
Well, that's incredible honesty. I'm going to put you guys to the test, though.
Yes.
You know,
Don't go down to pressure, yeah.
in the interest of bringing credible, honest information to our viewers, Solsol is not, under any circumstance, the only service provider or supplier out there when it comes to certified pre-owned. So I'm going to go investigate a little bit more. We have established that CPO is indeed a viable alternative to buying new and putting some extra cash in your pocket. But who else out there? And is there a bigger story to this? Daniel, David, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you guys. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was In Conversation. Please don't forget to subscribe and share. Catch you on the next episode.